Oh, technology. What could we do without it? It's literally the first thing we turn to when we wake up and turn off our alarm, or when we want to be entertained by watching a series, or when we want to exercise and use our treadmill. Or, shall I continue? It's already clear to us that technology plays a fundamental role in our lives. Today, even children are born with a cell phone in hand, and it's not something that can be avoided. For everything we need an email or social networks. But a funny thing happens when these same technologies play a special role in our routine. It fails. Today we will review these types of cases, in which technology suddenly fails, giving rise to funny moments. In some of these cases, you'll surely feel identified. Before starting the video, I invite you to leave a like and subscribe to my channel to see more content like this. Without further ado, let's get started with the video. Surely you have heard of this one before. It's one of the errors that gave a micro heart attack to more than one of the inhabitants of Hawaii, who were bombarded with notifications through their phones, televisions, and radios warning about a ballistic missile incoming and the end of the world. A follow-up message broadcast nearly an hour later said the first message was a false alarm. This event is unlikely to ruin lives, but it certainly caused one of the biggest scares of a lifetime for some poor citizens of Hawaii. You may have heard of Juicero before, and probably not for the healthiest of reasons. The Juicero is basically an internet meme right now and has been hailed as one of the dumbest inventions of this decade. So what is Juicero? Well, Juicero, unlike traditional juicers, uses bags of pre-cut and pre-squeezed fruits and vegetables, which you simply place in the Juicero to juice them into a glass for you. Why bother taking your time doing the easiest thing in the world, which is cutting the fruit yourself? No, not at all, we'll do it for you. This product failed miserably for obvious reasons. Beauty products seem ridiculous today. Well, this one that I will mention to you will probably be totally nonsense. Meet the Rejuvenique Toning Mask. This facial mask promised to achieve a level of beauty like Linda Evans by receiving electrical pulses at 12 points on her face. In the style of the pulse simulation devices for muscle tone that still exist, the mask was based on this by offering a kind of exercise routine for the face, according to its inventor, Gregor E. Springer, quote, equivalent to 8 squats per second. The reality is that it's easier to have facial surgery than to do face squats. The funniest thing is that there are people who fell for these scams. And speaking of scams, here we have a very serious one. Since due to the technological boom of these last decades, in Silicon Valley, many fraudulent people took the opportunity to become millionaires. This was the case of Elizabeth Holmes with her supposed revolutionary invention called Theranos. I say supposedly because it never worked. It's a minimal device that would allow blood tests to be done in real time. Yeah, it sounds unreal, but many investors thought it was an incredible idea to give millions of dollars to this woman. That great promise of biotechnology made its billionaire creator the youngest in the world, thanks to a valuation of $9,000 million in a company that maintained enormous secrecy, almost sectarian. That ended up exploding. The blood tests that had promised paradise in modern life were unreliable and not very valid, and those that worked did so with Simon's technology. That was a gigantic pantomime, a false revolution that promised everything without providing anything. She is currently found guilty of fraud in court, and she expects a tough future for this poor millionaire. We know that the internet can ruin lives. For example, a hacker can take your sensitive information and spread it. But sometimes internet users can ruin a person's career without knowing it. This is the case of the Taiwanese model Hide Ye, who posed for an ad for a plastic surgery firm. She didn't know it would ruin her relationship and her career thanks to social media. Her ad, which featured her alongside a male model and 3 clearly digitally altered children, went viral and was shared millions of times. Many commuters mistakenly thought that it was Ye's own family in the photo, leading to much ridicule. Potential clients also assumed that she had real plastic surgery, so she was never hired again, and her career went downhill. Something sad is that a joke became a sad story. The next one, you have to know how to choose which advertisements to get into, right? Now, I'm going to talk about a promised revolution that did not happen either, and that is the Xbox One was fiercely competitive with Sony and Nintendo, so they had to create a product that would surpass the competition. Did they? Not really. When Microsoft began marketing Kinect, it did so with the intention of going one step further than Nintendo had gone into its spectacular Nintendo Wii. The gesture control system seemed to be able to go beyond the Japanese proposal, and Microsoft bet so much on the Kinect that it was wrong in the bet. Neither the games managed to fulfill their promise, nor did other parallel, but even more interesting developments, rehabilitation of injured patients, for example. Kinect ended up being a sentence at the launch of the original Xbox One, and that revolution that Microsoft proposed for us to play standing up and with gestures didn't go much further than what Wii Sports proposed. Microsoft realized the error too late, and by then the PlayStation 4 was already a worldwide success. Today, luckily, Microsoft is a success with the release of Game Pass and the new console, but its error with the Kinect took millions of dollars from the company. If you have a chance, look into Project Milo. Project Milo was an AI demonstration of Kinect, where a scripted actress was interacting with a pre-recorded video of Milo, a supposed AI that would be a future upcoming game in the Kinect. Totally bogus. When Amazon announces a new product, we are all expectant, and more if CEO announces a television series of $1 billion. But not everything is successful in life, because there's always a stone in the shoe. I present to you the Amazon Fire Phone, a product that turned out to be a complete nonsense. The product was intended to revolutionize the way we buy products. Its forefront cameras posed a dynamic perspective that had very few practical applications. Although there were interesting ideas such as the Firefly button to recognize objects and offer us their price on Amazon. That product was condemned for an insane price for the features it offered. In the end, the Fire Phone was nothing more than a product for us to buy even more from Amazon, not to solve any essential problem in the world of mobility. The idea could now have a second chance, but Jeff Bezos' company will have to be careful with its approach. Of course, if billions are not spent on any other series saga. If we told you that a woman believed her GPS so much that she jumped into the water, would you believe us? This really happened. It turns out that a Canadian woman guessed that there would be a ferry or boat landing located by the lake. Give it credit, it was too dark to see anything. Surely, the 23-year-old who parked her car at the lake in Ontario could have been a little more aware of her surroundings and had a little less trusting of technology. Police described her as a little embarrassed, but she thankfully escaped unharmed. At least there was good news. And to finish here, I'm going to tell you a fairly old one that is already a classic that everyone will surely know. And those who do not will be left with several laughs. It turns out, for those who didn't know, there was an adaptation of the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the Nintendo Atari 2600 in 1982. The company promised that it would be one of the best games of that Christmas. Since it was calculated that it would be released by that date, the game had many development problems, and in order to raise more money, production was brought forward so that it would be released around Christmas time. The results? As it turned out, the game did not sell anything, since it was both a mechanical and an aesthetic failure. There was nothing like this movie with what was happening on screen, and the game was boring. Several cartridges ended up eliminated. Or is that what we were told? Since the story does not end anymore. On top of the fact that the product was a technological failure, it turned out that all the cartridges that weren't sold were buried in the desert, these being evacuated in 2013 for a documentary on the history of video games. Perhaps this was the worst case of failed technologies. As we see, although we must sometimes force ourselves to trust technology, it can be counterproductive in many ways. Sometimes we can't avoid it, such as ridiculous products that we could ignore, such as sometimes when we trust our GPS so much that we end up on Mars. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel. Apple is developing an insane car. Will it become a failure? Check that out by clicking on this video right here.